Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR365.com, podweather.com with an update on very dangerous Hurricane Ike. And there's the Gulf of Mexico, and clearly Hurricane Ike is one of, if not really the largest hurricane we've ever had to deal with on the Texas coastline. The sheer mass of the system makes up for it being only a Category 2 hurricane, and it has a Category 4 or 5 type of storm surge that is going to push ashore in Texas with it. It is a very large and dangerous hurricane. Here's the latest as of 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. It was at 27.7 north, 93.5 west. Winds were 105 miles per hour, gusting to 125. So it's less than 10 miles per hour away from a Cat 3 or a major hurricane. It's really a technicality. It could become one before landfall, but right now not specifically expected to do so. It is moving northwest at 11 to 12 miles per hour, and that pressure is 955 millibars. And it is expected to make landfall right around shortly after midnight tonight, early Saturday morning, in the general vicinity of Galveston, Texas. And then by Saturday afternoon, be way up into the Texas inland area, still as a hurricane, and then finally weaken to a storm, a depression by Sunday, and then very quickly get absorbed by a front and be pulled out and be over the areas of Illinois and Indiana by the time Sunday and Monday rolls around. However, the track is still a little broad. It could always head a little bit north and east of where Galveston Bay is. It could always head a little bit further to the south, more near the Freeport area, but really that upper Texas coastline is under the gun from a very dangerous hurricane. We do have those hurricane warnings out all the way from Morgan City, Louisiana, on over towards areas of Port Aransas, and then tropical storm warnings on every side. I mean, literally, you got it from the Alabama, Florida coastline all the way down to South Texas. This entire area, look, you have tornado watches out, you got inland watches and warnings. You just have a mess from this massive, sprawling 105 mile an hour hurricane. And there's that wind field. Again, tropical storm force winds already impacting a good deal of Louisiana and Texas. And look at all that's still left to come. And then you have those hurricane force winds right there extending very far out, hundreds of miles away from the center. The pure energy of this system is more mass than Hurricane Katrina. Now, Katrina was a Category 5, 175 miles per hour, and it was quickly weakening as it made landfall. The center of the eye crossed the coast with Katrina at 125 miles per hour. That's a far cry from the 175 Katrina had been just a few hours earlier, but that rush of Category 4 or 5 surge pushed ashore, and we saw what happened to areas like Waveland, Mississippi, Gulfport, all the way over to Alabama. Same with Rita. Rita was a Cat 5 over the Gulf. Weekend made landfall as a minimal Cat 3, 115, but we saw what happened to Holly Beach and Cameron Parish with that Cat 3 or 4 storm surge. With this hurricane, you're probably going to have Katrina-like surge, but the winds are nowhere near what Katrina ever was. But it's just the sheer size and the fact that this hurricane has been brewing that's going to cause that problem. And with that storm surge, we could see upwards of potentially up to 30 feet at the heads of those bays up there. And already parts of Galveston, you got 9 feet of water, houses surrounded by water. There are rumors and speculation that some people stayed behind, and we wish them the best. But if there's 9 feet of water and the hurricane is still a good 100 or so miles away from the coastline, Galveston is in big trouble. You can see the entire mass of the hurricane. This is why it has such a large surge. It could never strengthen. This thing could have easily become a Category 4 or 5 over the Gulf, but it was never able to mix out that tiny core and form a new eye, and it still has problems, but just look at how it's been able to expand and become such a large and dangerous hurricane. It really is a significant storm, and that is why it needs to be taken very seriously, because this is crunch time with regard to Hurricane Ike. Again, there's the visible rapid scan, and as we put that in motion, you could clearly see that eye approaching. And again, it's much better defined than it was even this morning, but still lagging, but that doesn't matter. This mass, you can just tell that there's this mass of wind and water, this dome of water that's just tipping the northwest Gulf Coast. It's just tipping all that landmass underwater. It's almost like you have an ice cube tray and you're just pushing that underwater. That is causing those problems, and it's going to be very, very devastating for areas of the Gulf Coast. The radar out of Lake Charles clearly shows that big ol' eye. Still, again, not extremely well defined, but it is still an eye, and it is tight and trying to tighten up a bit. But again, 100 mile an hour, 105 mile an hour hurricane this large, in a lot of ways, with the storm surge of a Cat 4 and 5, is worse than a tiny Category 4, because smaller hurricanes don't have that water as much as the big ones do, and this is going to bring in a Category 4 or 5 type of storm surge to the coast that you wouldn't have seen with a small Category 4 or 5. There's the track model guidance in perfect agreement, Galveston, and again, looking at the area it's going to make landfall in: Galveston, Texas City, Seabrook, LaPorte, Baytown, High Island, Sabine Pass. These are areas that could really just take that right side, and you could have 20 to 30 feet of water pushing up in these areas, not to mention very nasty 100-plus mile-per-hour winds. 1900, September 8th, a Category 4 hurricane hit just south of the area of Galveston Bay near Galveston and killed 8,000 to 12,000 people, the deadliest U.S. hurricane on record. That began further south than Ike did and was a tropical storm throughout much of the Caribbean, sprawled for a few days over the Gulf and came in. That was a Category 4. In 1915, they built that 17-foot seawall, but still lost hundreds of people in another Cat 4 hurricane that hit Galveston in August of 1915. Again, this one will be a Category 2, but will probably have storm surge worse than any Texas hurricane, at least in the last 158 years or so of hurricane history. Hurricane Ike impacts landfall late night Friday, or probably more likely early on the morning Saturday after midnight. Expected to strike the Texas coastline, generally near Galveston, Houston. You're going to have shards of glass blown out of windows potentially if you get those hurricane force winds, and the high rise is very dangerous. Winds could be sustained near 100 to 125 depending on the strength. Higher gusts. Storm surge up to 20 feet near and east of the center, with surge up to 25 feet or more at the heads of bays. And rainfall 5 to 10 inches, max amounts of 15. It's moving pretty decently, so we shouldn't have a prolonged flood threat, but the impacts extend far from the center. Again, as the visible satellite shows, a much better defined hurricane with that eye showing up right there. A very eerie, very eerie hurricane there sitting in the northwestern Gulf. Texas, the last major hurricane to directly hit you, is Brett 99. That hit Kennedy County as a minimal Cat 3, a small minimal Cat 3 in August of 99, barely doing any damage, very unpopulated area. And then before that was the small, weak Cat 3 Alicia up near Houston. But this is going to dwarf all those and probably potentially be worse than the infamous Carla of 1961. So that'll do it for Hurricane Ike. Stay tuned to IPR365.com for continuing live coverage of this storm, and podweather.com for continuing podcasts. Let's just hope everybody in the warning area got out safe, because that water damage is going to be very much like what we saw in Hurricane Katrina, and it's going to wipe out an area of the Texas coast in about 12 hours. Take care.